Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Taylor Wiggins, and I'm the Manager of Security here with Columbus Metropolitan Library. And today I'm going to be providing a quick refresher training on security incident reporting and what we are looking for in a really solid incident report. So in order to cover the topic of security incident reports effectively, the first thing we have to do is answer the question, what are security incident reports and why are they important? So in order to do this more effectively, we need to kind of break up incident and reports, define those both individually, and then look at how those combine to really provide solid documentation for issues we might face within the organization. So for CML, an incident is an event with consequences that has the capacity to cause loss of life or injury, harm to tangible or intangible assets, or negatively impact organizational operations. On the flip side of that, a report is a document which presents focused, salient content to a specific audience. So when you combine both of those, what you really get is, a security incident report that is a document focused on providing information around a negative event or even an event that we faced out at one of our locations that we need to document for future reference. So it's important to keep in mind that security incident reports are used for many different things, both within and outside the organization. And so really right up front here, the first one that makes the most sense and is pretty obvious is we want to record specific information around an incident for our internal purposes. So we want to be able to keep track of, what's going on at our different locations, what challenges we're facing, and a security incident report allows us to really record that pertinent information surrounding an incident. Security incident reports are also used in criminal, civil, legal cases. So you want to keep this in mind as you're creating security incident reports that they could be subpoenaed or they could be used in evidence as evidence in a legal proceeding. We also use our security incident reports for statistics and operational overviews. A great example of this is when we open a new location or make a large security change, we'll actually look at the statistics from the incident reports to determine, do we have adequate security coverage? What challenges are we facing at that location? How can we adjust our security operations to try to limit those challenges and reduce the type of incidents that we're facing? Security incident reports are also a useful tool for officer evaluation and to see how the operations are going. And while it's not an intended use, security incident reports can sometimes find their way into news or media outlets. So let's dive into that a little bit further. At CML, all of our security incident reports are public records. Anyone can request copies of our incident reports at any time. So what we really need to keep in mind as we're writing these documents and reports is that while they're intended as an internal document, they can be requested. They are a public record. So that really needs to be in the front of our mind as we're going through the process of creating these reports. So now let's look at the question of what makes a good report. Here at CML, we follow the FACT model of reporting, and basically what that stands for is we want our reports to be factual, accurate, clear, and thorough. A really effective security incident report has these four attributes, and you can see them throughout the actual report. So let's dive into the definitions of these. So factual, pretty straightforward. It's a report that contains only facts, and a fact is a detail that actually occurred and is true. A little bit later in the presentation, we'll jump into objective versus subjective, but keep this in mind as you're going through the reporting process, that the only thing that goes into an incident report is what we know to be a fact. We also want our reports to be accurate. And basically accuracy just means that the report is free from mistakes or errors, it is precise, it is exact. This is punctuation, this is spelling. Also means that the report is accurate to the incidents that took place and that it's a good representation of what took place. We also want to ensure that our reports are clear. Also straightforward. The report is free from confusion and ambiguity. It is easily understood. We want to make sure that we're not using convoluted terms, run-on sentences, that we're being very clear and precise, and that the report is just easily understood. The report also needs to be thorough. It should include all necessary information. The big questions we always want to answer in a security incident report are who, what, when, where, why, and how. All of those questions really need to be answered in a good security incident report to make it very effective. So those should be the questions you should be focused on answering when you're creating the narrative for the security incident report. So there are also some additional considerations outside of the fact model that you want to keep in mind when you're creating a security incident report. The first one is objective versus subjective, and this kind of goes back to the factual in the fact model. Objective are facts, things that we know to be true, things that we've observed, things that we can say with certainty. Subjective are opinions and things that should be excluded from a security incident report. Quotations are extremely effective in security incident reports. This comes into play a lot when we're dealing with a threat situation. If we can quote the exact threat within the incident report, it makes it easier to approve that eviction and make sure that we've documented all the facts around the incident. Here I have live the incident. What this means is that a reader of the security incident report should feel like they're within the incident and they're living it for themselves. That's the level of detail that we want to have within our narrative. Anyone should be able to pick up a security incident report, read it from beginning to end, and feel like they were there, they experienced everything, and they knew what the officer or staff member was facing or was dealing with when they were facing that security incident. Reports need to be in chronological order. They need to follow the events and how they took place within the actual incident. So you should start at the beginning when you were first notified of a disturbance, and then end with what the outcome of the incident was, what the customer's reaction was, were they evicted for the day, or were they allowed to stay. So make sure that all incident reports are following chronological order. Reports need to be timely. What I mean by this is you need to focus on writing your security incident report as quickly as possible after the incident occurs. We all know that if an incident happens and you go home and you sleep on it and some hours have passed or a day has passed, the facts are not going to be as fresh in your mind, and the incident report will be lacking some detail that's really important to have included in the narrative. So make sure that you're filling out your incident reports as quickly as possible after the incident has occurred. Reports need to be grammatically correct. It's important to use spell check. It's important to make sure that everything looks good in the narrative and that we're using proper English. And then the last one I have on here is that data fields are not enough. In security incident reports, usually above the narrative, you'll have a lot of options to input date, times, other details. Those are great, and we need to make sure that we're being very accurate with that, but that does not mean that you don't have to include that level of detail in your narrative. That detail should be reinforced with your narrative and should also be included in there with dates, times, specifics about what happened. So make sure that that information gets included in your narrative as well. So here what we have is a example of a narrative that we put together, and I'm going to give everyone a few quick minutes to read through this and kind of digest the information there. So a few things about this narrative example that I want to point out is that we start with the date and the time that the security officer was notified of the incident, and you'll notice that the security officer is also speaking in first person and identifies himself at the beginning of the incident report. This is really important for any security officer, staff member throughout CML to begin this way, to identify themselves and provide the date and time. You'll also notice that the narrative does a great job of documenting the steps the officer took to remedy the situation. You'll notice that when the officer enters the computer lab, the customer stands up, screams, causes a disturbance, and the officer initially provides her with a warning or a chance to change her behavior before it escalates to a day-long eviction. Also worth noticing is that there's some direct quotes in this narrative, both of the officer and the customer, and that you'll see that some profanity is included. It's really important when we're using quotations within a narrative that we get the quotations exactly word for word. If profanity is used, we need to include that in the incident report because it helps the reader feel like they were there and know exactly what was said. And then you can see at the end of the report, there's also the last line, which lets you know that the customer, Mrs. Lynch, left the library without further incident and the incident was over. So this is a great example of a noise or behavioral disturbance narrative report that we would would be looking for. Now, granted, if it's a larger incident or something a little bit different, the narrative would probably look different, be longer. There's a lot of variables, but here's a good example of one for a noise and behavioral disturbance. So two questions that we often get in security administration are original report, a supplement, or a new report altogether. So what we want to keep in mind here is we want to document every incident that occurs individually. If there are multiple code of conduct infractions in one incident, that can go in a single incident report, and that report should be coded as the highest level of violation within the entire incident. If it's a separate incident, separate day, separate people, that needs to be a new incident report altogether. And the purpose of a supplement is to only provide additional information around a single incident. So our reporting system does allow us to link security incident reports together. So we want to make sure we're doing that. And we also want to make sure that when we have more information around an individual incident, that we're using a supplement to provide that information within the actual original incident report. Another question we often get is, when do I need to write an incident report? So anytime we have a code of conduct violation, we need to be documenting it with a security incident report. I'm of the mindset, when in doubt, document. So keep that in the back of your mind as you're out there and you're at the locations and you're dealing with different incidents that come up. If you have any questions, reach out to security administration, your security officer at your site, and ask them, and they'll have a good idea around whether an incident report needs to be written. Also, at a very minimum, whenever we are asking the customer to leave for the day, even if it's just for the day eviction, we need to make sure we're documenting that with an incident report. And we also need to make sure that we're documenting when we're dealing with a customer who is a repeat violator in a certain area. A lot of our evictions vary depending on which violation it is, whether it's a first, second, or third violation. We need to have each of those violations documented in a security incident report to be able to escalate the eviction to the next level. So now I'll share with you a few quick tips on really writing an effective incident report. So the first one is that spell check is our friend. Our current incident reporting platform doesn't provide spell check, but the one we're migrating to does. So for the time being, if you want to type your narrative in Microsoft Word, spell check it there, copy and paste it in, please do that. And then when we make the transfer over to the new incident reporting system, please ensure that you're using spell check when you're writing your narrative and that everything is spelled correctly. So the next one, caps lock is not our friend. Some incident reports that I see will be in all capital letters. Somebody uses caps locks and types it out that way. Please don't do that. It sometimes even makes it more difficult to read and comes across as yelling. So let's not use caps locks for incident reports. Number 3, in the never-ending sentence. You'll see this a lot in incident reports, especially when people are focusing on being chronological, that there'll be a run-on sentence. So try to avoid that and make sure that you're having really clear, succinct sentences that get the point across. Use names and pronouns, I, he, her. It needs to be in first person, so you are fine to use those throughout your incident report. Also, start every sentence with a person, place, or thing. This will help with avoiding never-ending sentences or run-on sentences. If you keep it focused like that and you begin every sentence with a person, place, or thing, it almost forces you to have real, clear, succinct thoughts within your narrative. Number 6, keep it simple. In the military, they use this a lot, keep it simple. So the same thing applies for your incident reports. This doesn't mean that you should make it as brief as possible or leave out details. It just means you don't have to make the narrative convoluted or confusing. Just keep it simple, keep it chronological, and stick to the facts. Writing paragraphs, absolutely fine to do. Whatever helps you organize your thoughts when you're filling out the narrative. Using paragraphs is a great way to accomplish this. You can split your thought up. So you'll notice in the narrative example that I provided, that was organized into a paragraph structure as well. Focus on getting across one idea per sentence. This also assists with the run-on sentences or never-ending sentence. If you focus on getting one idea across per sentence, it'll help to avoid those run-ons. And then the last one is use the active voice. So the example of this is I observed Mr. Smith conceal the magazine in his backpack. If you're ever subpoenaed or an incident report goes to a criminal proceeding or civil proceeding, they're going to want to see this because you'll be testifying first person. So your incident report should reflect that. You get what you experienced, what you saw, the facts that you observed within your incident report by using the first person or active voice. So there are some additional resources that will be posted at the end of this training that you can look through if you're needing any help, if you have any questions. So the first one, I will include some links to some video trainings around writing incident reports, narratives. These are provided by Police One. It's an online training organization for police and security officers, but they are applicable to anyone that fills out security incident reports, and they're really worth your time if you have a couple minutes to spare and can click through some of those videos. There'll also be some website links included on how security officers can properly document incidents. Could give you some tips, some tricks, maybe some other things that weren't in this PowerPoint presentation that you can have as a resource. Organizational development also offers a class, CPI, how to document incidents. It's a really great in-person instructional training that kind of digs more into the fact model and what we're looking for in an effective incident report from a CML standpoint. Also included will be a link to the online writing lab. This is a great resource for anybody who's just looking to improve their writing skills or documenting skills in general. They have a lot of tips, lessons, different things that you can focus on and read through. It's a great resource. And then finally, if you have any specific questions, you can email me directly. It's twiggins@columbuslibrary.org. Specific questions around, should I write an incident report? Should it be a supplement? Even if you have a very large incident and you're worried about the narrative or what was written, feel free to just shoot that to me real quick to look over before it's actually submitted in the incident report, or we can always go in and adjust it after the fact. So I'm a resource. If you have any questions, please reach out and let me know, and we'll get some help for you. And that's it. I just want to say thank you for joining me today for this quick refresher training on security incident reporting. If you have any future questions, let me know. Thank you.